Shabbat Shalom. Look who's with me. I brought Bromology with me. And that scene in Platoon, even if you've never seen the movie, you've seen the scene where William Dafoe is running through the jungle and he's got his arms up like this and he's just being pelted from behind, just getting shot like boo, boo, boo. And he's running and they play that really sad adagio music as the soldiers are in the helicopter watching him get shot. That's what I feel like. I'm the Sabbath is my finish line, and I just got my arms up, and I'm just getting, boom, boom, I'm just trying to make it. And I'm so glad this week that I got Bromology here. I got Dan and Michael in the helicopter to catch me and carry me in. We've all three of us had our own storylines this week. We all went through our own busyness and challenges, and here we are converging together. So thank you guys for coming this week, Michael and Dan. And it's a special week because we are starting the book of Numbers, and I think we have a lot that we're going to talk about tonight. So I'm not going to dilly-daddle through the daisies too much. So let's just get right into this. We were losing a lot of screen visibility, as you can see, because we're all the way across the top here. So I'll try to navigate the best way I can. So let's just do a quick last week review. Pamela came by for a visit to close off Leviticus. If you did not see that episode, I recommend it. She just has, Pamela has some incredible, she's the translator of the Paleo Hebrew into this text that we are reading. So come by and check out her observations. She went down this great rant about the lion men. So let's just look at where we've been this year. We've accomplished 3 books. We're on our 4th. And it's going to be amazing when we get through our first cyclical Torah portion and we accomplish all 5 books. But I was trying to put my thoughts together this week. What are the themes of these 3 books? Now, everybody listening, you're probably screaming at your TV or your computer, like, no, you left out this one important theme. I'm sure there's all sorts of amazing things in these 3 books. But in Bereshith, Genesis, the way I see it is that it's a family quilt from Adam down through the patriarchs. We're talking about Yaakov and his sons, right? Down to Joseph and Yehuda and Reuben as they go into Egypt. And wouldn't it be amazing if each one of us, now, of course, the Torah and the Tanakh, that is our family quilts. If we have been grafted into Yasharel, we are spiritually descended. We might be physically descended, but we are spiritually descended from them. They are our family quilt. But wouldn't it be amazing if each one of us, so I'm a Hadley, and if I had in my family the last 400 or 500 years an actual testament like we have with Genesis, where like my grandfather gets 3 or 4 chapters, and my great-grandfather, my great-great-grandfather, right? And I could read back and see what their spiritual health, their analysis was with Allaham. That would be a really interesting way to look at our family. But anyways, that's how I see Bereshith, as a family quilt going all the way back from Adam. It's the story of recreation. If you guys remember back in week 1, Pamela and I were trying to find actual creation creation words in Genesis 1. And the only ones that we could assuredly say were created in the creation week were the sun and the moon. It appeared that everything else was being kind of reintroduced to the earth after destruction events, and there were storehouses of animals and seeds and all sorts of things. It's of course the story of Yahuwah, the son of Allahayam, and that's of course fighting words for some of you, but that's the case we're trying to make through this. That Yahuwah, or Yahuwah, who is most people say is the father, that he was always the son. He was always the person who made the covenant with Abraham, was the son of the Most High all along from the very beginning. And specifically that the son of Allahayam was declared the heir of creation in Bereshith chapter 1. Which then, of course, invoked the creature from the Black Lagoon to come out of the abyss. We see the land inheritance among men and Allahayam, and that Yahuwah's inheritance, that he formed this family, starting with Adam. He creates Adam. This is his personal family. There might have been other men on the earth, but this is his personal, child that he forms, and he follows through. He forms a covenant with Abraham, creates a family. Move forward to Exodus, or Shemawath, and we see the Yeshua, the salvation of Yahuwah's family out of bondage in Mitzrayim, which would be Egypt. And of course, Yasharel's marriage at Sinai, or you can see that I put the Paleo word there, Cyanuia. I always want to say Sinai, whatever. I need more coffee. Via the Torah, the introduction to the Torah, the marriage of Yasharel. We just got through Leviticus, Yakra, and if I had to explain it, I'm going to be putting more emphasis on the idea of the mysteries of the kingdom, right? The kingdom mysteries. And hopefully that's not offensive to people out there, because we learn about the mystery religions and people are like, well, the Bible is not a mystery religion. And then they start finding things in the Bible that actually match with the mystery religions. And they're like, oh my goodness, it's all pagan, right? And they all run out screaming. But the difference with the kingdom mysteries, as we see taught to us in Leviticus, is that it's quite unlike the worthless mysteries that the Watchers brought down. For example, Yasharel is instructed on the royal priesthood. They learn holiness and the difference between clean and unclean as they're about to go into Canaan, to a very unclean place. And most specifically of all, Moshe looks to heaven actually, that happens in Exodus, but he looks to heaven and he sees the tabernacle, that it's modeled after the tabernacle in heaven. Well, we know that there isn't a physical tabernacle in heaven. It is actually modeled, crazily enough. I mean, crazy that it was modeled after the body of our high priest and king, Melchizedek. I'm sorry if I'm tripping over my own words tonight. I'll try to straighten out my speech. So that brings us up to the present. So introduction to what we'll be going through in Bamidbar. Bamidbar, that'd be the book of Numbers in the Paleo. And if I could sum up this book, I would say that it can best be summed up in a camping trip gone wrong. Now, Michael, you just went to a camping trip, I think last weekend or 2 weekends ago. I think it went well for you, but I think every single one of us can reflect back on some point in our life when the camping trip started out good and it just spiraled and went bad. Just it rained the whole time, tent gets ripped, bears come in, just take all your food, just kids screaming, having to go pee the whole trip, right? Like just that kind of thing. And I remember when I came over to the Torah back in 2019. So I was the class of 2019, and a lot of the people that were coming in that time after the Revelation 12 sign, 2017, 18, 19, and there was just like all this romance. I don't even know what it's like out there now, but it was all these romantic notions of, wouldn't it be so wonderful if we could all get together in the wilderness and just this big camping trip for 40 years living together? And I'm just like, have you even read the book? Like, do you know, like we would get along for maybe a week, maybe. I mean, Israel they got along actually for 2 years, which is pretty shocking. But we'd get along for a week and then we'd be at each other's throats, and it would just be murder from there. And then people would start moaning, complaining, hunger, I'm thirsty, wow. People start dying. Anyways, that's basically Numbers in a nutshell right there. So the first 10 chapters cover a 20-day period during which censuses are given. And we're going to read chapters 1 through 4 about some of those censuses. They're given, and Yasharel is prepared to march through the wilderness towards their final destination. They're actually preparing for war. It's pretty exciting to think about. Like they're loading the ammo. They're getting ready to go in there. And so Yasharel is ready to enter the land they've only had a 2-year detour at Sinai, and for the purposes of meeting Yahuwah in person, which is really exciting to think about. They went out there and actually saw Yahuwah. They got the instructions for the building of the tabernacle and learning the kingdom mysteries in the Torah, hence Leviticus, when they murmur, rebel, and then refuse to enter due to their unbelief. And that's when it goes wrong. We'll get there in like Numbers 12 or 15 or in the whereabouts, where it all goes downhill really quickly. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read. Michael and Dan have been patiently waiting on the other ends, quiet. And I'm hoping they can jump in and interject any time. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to read chapter 1. We're reading through 4 chapters tonight. I'll read chapter 1. You guys know the drill. I'm going to hand it over to Michael, give the first commentary on chapter 1, and then Dan can jump in and give commentary, and then I'll follow. So here we go. Hot off the press, Pamela's translation of the Paleo of Numbers, Bamidbar. Hopefully I'll get this down after 12 weeks. And Yahweh, the ever living, set words in order towards Al Mashaha, there it is again, Madabar, Sinanuya, in the wilderness of Sinanuya, that would be Sinai, in the tent of meeting, in the first of the second Kadash, in the second year of their going forth from Aratz Matzarim to declare, take the sum of the head of the assemblies of the sons of Yasharel, of the families of the house of their fathers, the names of every male by their skulls, from a son of 20 years and higher, of all going forth to warfare in Yasharel. You shall number them by their armies, you and Aaron, and with you shall exist every man of a tribe, the head man of the house of his fathers. And these are the names of the men who shall stand and minister with you. Of Reuben would be Ala Yatsawar. Let me see what's over here in, that'd be Elazar in the King James, son of Shideor or Shadayah, of I'm sorry, I'm Pamela, you're killing me here. I'm going to butcher these names. I'm going to try the best I can. Of Shama Awan, Shalamaya Al, son of Raya Shadea, of there's Yehuda, Yahadua, Nakashan, son of Amayah Nudab, of, and here's Yishakar or Issachar, Yashakar, Nathu Yunu Al, son of Sayar. Then there's Zebulun of Zabulon, Eliab, son of Chalon. For the sons of, and then here's Yosef. For the sons of Yosef of, the first would be Ephraim. And then Alashamai, son of Amayahad. And of Manasseh would be Gamaliel, son of Fadahasar. This is like a video game. It's like every level gets harder. I kid you not. I thought I got through all the begots in Genesis and they were hard, but this is crazy. Then we see of Benjamin, Banu Yaman, Abayadan, son of Gada Enuya, of Dan. I love how he doesn't change in any language whatsoever. Just Dan. Good old Dan. Akayai, son of Amayah Shadaya of Asher, is my wife knows if I ever have another son, we're having an Asher. Quick commentary on Asher is because it's just like, I mean, if you shorten it, it's Ash, right? And then if people make fun of you, it's it's Bad Ash, right? So I mean, it's an awesome name. I mean, who wants to mess with an Asher, right? Of Asher is Faga Eyal, I totally butchered that, I'm sorry, son of Acharon. Of Naphtali is Akayaraya, son of Aonan. These were the called out ones of the congregation, noble, lifted up chiefs of the tribes of their fathers. These are the heads of thousands of Yasharel. And Mashaha and Aaron took these men, which are distinguished by their names, and he, Mashaha, called all the congregation together on the first of the second Kadash, and he brought them forth after their families of the house of their fathers by the number of their names, from a son 20 years and higher, by their skulls, like that which Yahweh, the ever-living, had established with Mashaha, and he numbered them in the wilderness of Sinai. And the sons of Reuben, Yasharel's Bakar, or his firstborn, of their generations, of their families, of the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names by their skulls, every male from a son aged 20 years and higher, those able to go forth to warfare. Those numbered of them of the tribe of Reuben were 640,500. Of the sons of Simon, or Shama, after their generations of their families, of the house of their fathers, those numbered of them according to the number of the names by their skulls, every male from sons aged 20 years and higher, all who were able to go forth to warfare. Those numbered of them were 59,300. Of the sons of Gad, after their generations of their families, of the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from sons aged 20 years and higher, all able to go forth to warfare. Those numbered of them of the tribe of Gad were 40,650. Of the sons of Yehuda, after their generations of their families, of the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from sons aged 20 years and higher, all who were able to go forth to warfare, those numbered of them of the tribe of Yehuda were 470,600. Of the sons of Yeshachar, after their generations of their families of the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from sons aged 20 years and higher, all able to go forth to warfare. Those numbered of them of the tribes of Yeshachar were 450,400. Of the tribes of Zebulun, after their generations of their families of the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from sons aged 20 years and higher, all who were able to go forth to warfare. Those numbered of them of the tribe of Zebulun were 750,400. Of the sons of Joseph, of the sons of Ephraim, after their generations of their families, of the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from sons aged 20 years and higher, all able to go forth to warfare. Those numbered of them of the tribe of Ephraim were 40,500. Of the sons of Manasseh, after their generations of their families, of the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from sons aged 20 years and higher, all able to go forth to warfare. Those numbered of them of the tribe of Manasseh were 230,200. Of the sons of Benjamin, after their generations, by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from sons aged 20 and higher, all able to go forth to warfare. Those numbered of them of the tribe of Benjamin were 530,400. Of the sons of Dan, after their generations of their families, of the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from sons aged 20 years and higher, all able to go forth to warfare. Those numbered of them of the tribe of Dan were 260,700. Of the sons of Asher, after their generations of their families, of the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from sons aged 20 and higher, all able to go forth to warfare. Those numbered of them of the tribe of Asher were 140,500. Of the sons of Naphtali, or Naphthuliah, after their generations of their families and of the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from sons aged 20 and higher, all able to go forth to warfare. Those numbered of them of the tribe of Naphtali were 350,400. These are those numbered by them, which numbered by Mashahah and Aaron and the lifted up nobles of Yasharel, 12 men, each man existing for the house of his fathers. And they existed, all those numbered by the sons of Yasharel, of the house of their fathers, from sons aged 20 years and higher, all able to go forth to warfare in Yasharel. And all those numbered existed 600,000 and 3,550. But the Levites, or the Wayam of the tribe of the fathers, were not numbered among them. And Yahuwah, the ever-living, set forth words in order toward Al-Mashahah to declare, certainly the tribe of the Levites, Wayah, you shall not number, and neither lift up their heads among the sons of Yasharel. And you shall number the Levites over the Mashachan dwelling place of the revealed precepts, and over all his implements, and over all which belongs to him. And in the pulling up of the Mashachan dwelling place, the Wayam, the Levites, will cause it to go down, and in pitching the tent, the Levites will erect him. And the stranger that draws near shall be executed. And the sons of Yasharel shall pitch their tents, every man over his own camp, and each man by his banner for their armies. And the Levites shall pitch their tent in a circuit round about for the Mashkan dwelling place of the revealed precepts. And there shall not exist anger upon the congregation of the sons of Yasharel. And the Levites shall guard the observance of the Mashkan dwelling place of the revealed precepts. And the sons of Yasharel fashioned like all that which Yahuwah, the ever-living, established with Mashahah. In that manner, they fashioned it. All right, so I survived that. And Michael, we lost your sharing screen, so you might want to bring that back up, and I could toss that up.
Sure. Yeah, let me see. It's up now. Let me know if you can see it now.
I cannot see it.
Hold on. Let me see. Let's see.
Okay, there it is.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so yeah, Michael 1380 on the Discord channel. Been a partner with Noel and on the Discord channel since the beginning. My buddy here is Dan Carfagno. We were about a month or so ago, 6 weeks, we actually presented on leaving Freemasonry. Dan was a former Freemason. And me and him do a podcast called Bromology, and we just love you to check it out. So I guess I'm going to start first, and then I think Dan's going to do his commentary. Hopefully you guys can see it pretty clearly. I wanted to start with that word wilderness. This is a big Bamidbar is actually wilderness, right? So he spoke to Moshe in the wilderness. So I thought it was interesting that, that word for desert or wilderness is midbar. But then the word for speak has the same exact letters. And I wanted to go to show a connection of when Yah speaks to people in the wilderness, when they're going through struggle. In this story, they just left Egypt. They were redeemed. Now they got to go through these wilderness trials. So sometimes in the wilderness season of our lives, we hear God speaking to our hearts, just as several Bible characters did. For instance, God led Gomer, the adulterous wife of Hosea, into the wilderness to speak tenderly to her. So Hosea 2:14-15 say, "Therefore, behold, I will allure her and bring her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her. And there I will give her vineyards and make the valley of Endor a door of hope." It was in the wilderness that an angel found Hagar and gave her a word from the Lord. So the angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, the spring on the way to Shur. The angel of the Lord said to her, so the angel is speaking, an agent of the Father, said to her, "Return to your mistress and submit to her." Even in the New Testament, Luke, the word of the Lord also came to John the Baptist in the silence of the wilderness. So I just wanted to, there was many more. I didn't want to take forever on this part, but just that, we all go through spiritual wildernesses. We all go through isolation when we're trying to reach out for Yah and we want him to speak to us. And these are just some examples of he does. I know my own personal testimony, when I was at my lowest, I heard from him. He had to rebuild me, and it's just been amazing. So for those who are in the wilderness now and looking for answers, just keep praying. He'll speak to you. Okay, so this is taking a census too. So we know this is a big part of it. They're gathering the sons of Israel and taking a census. Noel did a great job of all those names. Felt bad for him, but I just want to talk about that and the Hebrew people, that they were counted. So census counted on 10 occasions. So when they went down to Egypt, when they departed Egypt, once in the beginning of the book of Numbers right here, once in connections with the spies, once in the days of Yehoshua when the land was divided, twice in the days of Shaul, once in the days of David, once in the days of Ezra, and once in the future to come. So it's no coincidence that he counts his people. Noel kind of mentioned it too. It's war. Some think the 144,000 were counted because of that, and I'm sure he's going to go into that as well. Okay, so continuing with the census, I thought this cross-reference was pretty cool. In Exodus 38, it says the amount of silver that was given was about 7,545 pounds. It came from the tax of 1/5 of an ounce of silver collected from each of those registered in the census. This included all the men who were 20 years or older. So it's a pretty decent amount of silver there. Maybe somebody in the chat can do today's price on that. Okay, so Dan probably knew I was going to talk about this. Me and him have talked about this on the side, but is 20 the age of accountability? There's a lot of things, 20 years and upward. Here we have it right here. The leaders of each house were 20. Joshua and Caleb were it was everyone under 20. They were able to enter the promised land. There's a theory out there that Yeshua and Peter were the only ones in his group that were over 20 because they were the only ones who could enter the temple and pay the tax. I don't know. To me, that's a pretty cool thing if they were below that age and he was still mentoring them, Peter, Now, this is 2 years ago, but this was an awesome study I did in the Genesis Targum. I shared it on a bromology short too as well, so check that out. But to summarize, this is basically like Rebecca being chosen from Isaac's servant. So the servant sends her out. I think it's Genesis 24. Rebecca is actually chosen. Let's read it here. And it came to pass, as the camels had done drinking, that the man took a golden earring of a 1/2 shekel weight and the 2 bracelets for her hands of 10 shekels. So I did a word study looking to see where else this word was used. It was used in Exodus 38. All the gold that was used for the work and all the work of the sanctuary, which was the gold of the wave offering, was 29 talents, 730 shekels, according to the shekel of the sanctuary. And the silver of those of the congregation who were counted was 100 talents and 1,775 shekels, according to the shekel of the sanctuary. A bekah, a head, was assessed. Each one passed over to those who were counted from 20 years old and upward. and this was it. So this word, half a shekel weight, was a beka. It was a beka, same word, and it just happens to be the shortened name of Rebecca. And it was given to those who crossed over that were 20 and upward. And Rebecca crossed over into Abraham's family, Hebrews, 20 years and old and upward. We were talking about that during the Targum study. Is how old was Rebecca? I think that, Islam says she's 3. Most people say she was like early teens, 14. I tried to make the case that she was 20. Here's just another example. I thought that was cool. Additional 20-year verses I just pulled. So Numbers 30, anyone who was 20 years old when they left Egypt would not be able to enter the promised land. I talked about that. Judges says Israel waited 20 years for deliverance through Samson. First King says Solomon waited 20 years for the construction of the temple. Jeremiah 52, this chapter says Jerusalem waited 20 years between its capture and destruction. And on Jeremiah again, Jeremiah prophesied about the destruction of Israel for 20 years. This is the last thing I have, I believe, on this chapter, but I'm just going to read the bold. Some more on the 20. Army of Israel was to include men are 20 years and older. We just read that. Temple worship required men 20 years and older to bring their offerings. There appears to be a tradition by which children at age 12, I never caught that. Yeshua was entering the temple in Luke 2. If you remember, his parents didn't know where he was, but he had to be 12. That's pretty cool. I think it does say that. Temple vows treated men differently once they reached 20. The age at which men can enter service as priests was 20. We're going to talk more about that. God held men 20 years older responsible for civil sin, but not those younger. That's really interesting. I'll need to study that more. And 20 age threshold does not apply to all kings, however. I think I have one more thing on. Yeah, this is my last thing on chapter 1, and we'll hand it to Dan. Just about the Levites. But the Levites shall camp around the tabernacle of the testimony, so that there will be no wrath of the congregation of the sons of Israel. So the Levites shall keep charge of the testimony. So a cross-reference tells you why they were where they were at. So the purpose of setting the Levites apart and arranging them around the temple was to keep the wrath of the Lord from consuming Israel. They were the protection. They were the mediator. They were the ones who were intermediating between Father and Israel. And they're set apart. They were the most, obedient children of Israel. That's what I got for chapter 1. Dan, off to you, brother.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Man, listen, I don't really have a whole bunch of like manja, as we call it on bromology, where we go deep with the solid food. But first of all, Noel, good job reading that. I was in a meeting earlier this week, and we were going over some text, and then we would kind of talk about the theology. And I had one of the pastors look at me and go, "Hey, can you read that text?" And I literally just go, and everyone just in the room looked at me like, "Is he really saying no?" I'm like, "I'm not. I'm putting up healthy boundaries. I'm not going to read it." I felt like I was back in 5th grade when your teacher calls on you and to read, and it was like one of the most terrifying things in the world. And that was probably one of the most terrifying chapters I've ever seen. So hats off to you for doing that. Listen, if you're new to Torah study, I haven't gone super deep in Torah. I've gone through a few Torah portions over the last few years. I kind of came into Torah probably about 2018-ish. And one thing that I've really started to teach people and remind myself is sometimes when we read scripture, don't try to understand it when you're reading it. Just take it in. It's food, digest it, and let the Holy Spirit do the work later on. And when I was reading through the book of Numbers, these first 4 chapters, I was just reminded of that. Just take the information in and let the Holy Spirit do what the Holy Spirit's going to do. I think the age of accountability, Michael, you and I've talked about this a few times. 20 makes sense to me. And you just, laid out several different bullet points of why that might be the case. And I think that is probably true. You hear that. I know growing up in the church, I heard about the age of accountability, but nobody ever wanted to put a number on it. 20 seems to make sense to me. There seems to be a biblical case for that. The other thing I would add to this too is the Levitical priesthood protecting. That's amazing. It's the kind of go through between the people and God. I think we'll see as we continue through the book of Numbers, there was a firstborn exchange that happens here. And I think we first see it in Exodus, but there was the firstborn of Israel, and then it became the first cattle. And then eventually it became the firstborn of the Levites. And I think it points to this greater high priest that would be later to come. So you'll hear people say that Jesus is on every page of the Bible. And I truly think you can find that without trying too hard. And I think we'll see that as we shift to the firstborn of the Levitical priesthood. So good stuff, gentlemen. I'm just here to be a backup dancer tonight. So I appreciate you both for your good research.
Well, I always wanted a backup dancer, and so this is amazing. All my dreams are coming true tonight. I just something you had mentioned on not trying to understand scripture when you read it, just to read it into that is like the most amazing advice I think to give anybody. And of course, I think the goal is that everyone actually reads the Bible, right? You got to actually read it for yourself. I think that most people, I think this is one of the symptoms within Christianity that most actually don't sit down and actually read the Bible. And but I would also add to that something. Well, read it out loud if you can. I find that there's something about reading the scripture out loud, like your actual voice reading it. Even if you're in a room alone and your family hears you in that room, you're like, hey, he's crazy. He's reading the scripture again. It's just, there's something very powerful about that, and how it just it just saturates into your soul. Anyways, all right. The other thing I do appreciate, Michael, is that of all the studies we've done together, I always have you give the first commentary. And of course, so I know this firsthand, that like you give this great information, and it's always very closely connected to what I'm going to talk about, but it's very rarely the same thing, which I just find completely amazing. I always have this fear, especially when it was you and Rob, because when it was you and Rob, it's like I would always go last. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to be lucky if I have anything left over by the time it gets to me. That's one of my fears, right? You put all this research together, and it's like, yeah, it's what he said, right? He already covered it all. But anyways, so numbers. Now, a few things Michael did touch on here. Bamidbar actually means in the wilderness, sort of, because as Michael said, it actually, the very close word in Strong's Hebrew is, it can mean, in 4057, it can mean wilderness, but it can also mean mouth. I think Michael said speech or something. And as he also mentioned, the wilderness is a place of non-habitation, though it can also refer to a place or circumstance where we find ourselves, spiritually speaking. So I think it's really powerful, this idea of speaking a mouth in the wilderness. And what did Yahweh do? He took them out to the wilderness to speak to them so they could hear his mouth, and give them instruction. So here's an example of the same word that we use for wilderness, coming from Song of Shlomo, or Song of Solomon 4:3. And it says, your lips are like a scarlet ribbon and your mouth is lovely. And so you can see right there the Hebrew word coming from Song of Shlomo. It's Bamidbar. You can see right there, Bamidbar, or Bamidbarek, in your mouth. So, and Michael did go over some of these passages in the wilderness. So it is interesting that the wilderness can be a place of speaking, of instruction, but also temptation. And probably all my listeners are pretty familiar with my whole presentation of my paper on the wasteland of the seraphim, and this idea that in the desert places, that's where unclean ruachoth, unclean spirits go. We just saw that with Azazel. That's where he goes off into the wilderness. He goes wandering around in the wilderness, and that's where you would go out for instruction if you wanted to meet the satyrs, the hairy goat demon people, or Lilith, or whatever. You would go out in the wilderness to see them. That's where in Jubilees after the flood, that's where one of the descendants of, I think it was one of the descendants of Ham, went out there and discovered it was probably Göbekli, I'm mispronouncing, Göbekli Tepe or whatever it's called. He went and discovered the monument to the Watchers out there in the wilderness. Well, this is what it says in Matthew. You guys are all familiar with the story. In those days came Yochanan the Baptist preaching in the wilderness of Yehuda. So there it is right there. He's preaching in the wilderness, and he's the voice in the wilderness, the mouth, right? It's like a double play on the word. Repent ye, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. For this is what was spoken of by the prophet Isaiah, saying, I guess that's probably Yeshayahu, right? The voice of one crying in the wilderness. So you see the double play there. The mouth in the wilderness, the same word. Prepare ye the way of Yahweh, make his paths straight. Matthew 3. So we see in the same chapter, just skip several verses, and Yahusha, when he was baptized, went up straightway out of the water, and lo, the heavens were opened into him, and he saw the Ruach of Elohim descending like a dove and lighting upon him. And again, we see the mouth in the wilderness, and lo, a voice from heaven saying, "This is my beloved son in whom I am well pleased." So it's kind of interesting, right? That's where Yahuwah had declared himself to Yashro out in the wilderness as well, in Exodus and Leviticus and Numbers. Then was Yahusha led up of the Ruach into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. So we see another use for the wilderness, where, and of course, I believe that this devil is Azazel, the actual entity. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterward, I like the English on this, unhungered. So we'll be looking at the number 40. And when the tempter came to him, he said, "If thou be the son of Elohim, command that these stones be made bread." Now, I don't want to go off on a little rabbit trail here on how I am of the opinion that the tempter did not know. I mean, I think Hasatan, he hears the voice of course, that's the Ruach HaKodesh saying, "This is my beloved son." He hears the voice from heaven, and he's like, "Wait, what? Huh?" I mean, he's probably standing around, or he gets some report from other unclean spirits out there, and they're listening, and they're seeing all the people baptized, and they're like, "Wait, what's going on with this guy here? Who's this? Why is this voice from heaven saying he's the son of Elohim, son of Elohim?" And he goes out and he tempts him. Of course, he tells him to jump. He doesn't jump, and I am of the opinion that Hasatan did not believe that he was Mashiach. It was kind of a Trojan horse scenario. He finally finds out about it in Sheol. That's a whole different story. All right, so let's look at the 40 days. 40 days of spying out the land. That's going to come in a few weeks in Numbers. And this is, of course, where the camping trip goes wrong. So the spies go into Canaan for 40 days. They come back. They give an evil report. And Yashua listened to the 10 evil reports instead of the 2 good reports. And as a result, they get 40 years of wandering. The evil report was over giants. I need to mention that. And of course, I think by this time they had already been in the wilderness for 2 years. So you're just tacking on 38 years to that for a complete of 40. Well, then we see a reversal here. For 40 days, the giant Goliath in 1 Samuel comes up and challenges Yasharel. Nobody's going to meet this guy in battle in mortal combat. And so David listens, and as on the 40th day, I believe, and as a result, he gets the kingdom reign for 40 years. Now, this is interesting. Yahusha was tempted in the wilderness for 40 days, passed the test. And something that I think that gets ignored a lot that we need to look at a little bit closer is that for 40 days after his resurrection, he was meeting his disciples on the earth in a resurrected body and teaching them for 40 days. And then, of course, another piece of a number that gets overlooked a lot, though in this community it does not, is the 40 years leading up to the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, in which they were given time to repent. And so you see in this generation a repeat of the wilderness generation, where they were given 40 years to repent before crossing over into the promised land. And of course, they failed the test and they were destroyed. Just over and over again is, Yahuwah is telling Moshe, "I just want to destroy this people," right? They're just awful, awful. All right. So this is Yasharel's purpose in the wilderness. They're wandering through the wilderness for the 2 and the 38 years, or 40 total. According to Deuteronomy chapter 8, it says, "He led you through a vast and terrifying wilderness." Like I've been to the wilderness back there in Jordan in the area. I wouldn't say it's terrifying. So it'll be interesting to see what's so terrifying about it. Of course, there is the Rephaim and, Og and some incidents. But it says, "With its venomous snakes and scorpions, a thirsty and waterless land, he brought you water from the rock of flint. He fed you in the wilderness with manna that your fathers had not known, in order to humble you and test you." So that's the key there, right? He chastises us in order to humble us, test us, but also so that in the end he might cause you to prosper. This is, of course, a father's discipline, right? Now, I read this just this last week, and I found this whole chapter amazing. This comes from Wisdom of Solomon 11. Michael just stepped out. He's going to miss this because I know he loves wisdom literature. Wisdom prospered their works by the hand of a holy prophet. This is referring to Moshe. They journeyed through an uninhabited wilderness and pitched their tents in untrodden places. They withstood their enemies and fought off their foes. When they were thirsty, they called upon you, and water was given them out of flinty rock, which we just read about, and from hard stone a remedy for their thirst. For through the very things by which their enemies were punished, they themselves received a benefit in their need. Instead of the fountain of an ever-flowing river, stirred up and defiled with blood and rebuked for the decree to kill the infants, you gave them abundant water unexpectedly. So it's kind of like a reversal, that the plague of blood and Mitzrayim, now they see this pure water of life gushing forth in the wilderness, showing by their thirst at that time how you punished their enemies. For when they were tried, so here's, obviously you see this, whenever you see me highlight something in yellow, you know to pay attention to it. For when they were tried, though they were being disciplined in mercy, they learned how the ungodly were tormented when judged in wrath. For you tested them as a parent does in warning, but you examine the ungodly as a stern king does in condemnation. So we see the separation of the wheat and the tare, or the sheep and the goat, in the wilderness generation, where he's disciplining some as a loving parent, and to some of the rebels, he brings out the rod of iron, and he judges them, and many of them don't make it. Whether absent or present, they were equally distressed, for a twofold grief possessed them, and a groaning at the memory of what had occurred. For when they heard that through their own punishments the righteous had received benefit, they perceived it with Yahuwah's doing. For though they had mockingly rejected him, who long before had been cast out and exposed, at the end of the events they marveled at him when they felt thirst in a different way from the righteous, in return for their foolish and wicked thoughts, which led them astray to worship irrational serpents and worthless animals. This is so interesting. According to this, if I'm reading this right, the people in the wilderness started worshiping the very serpents, the fiery serpents, the seraphim angels in the wilderness. You sent upon them a multitude of irrational creatures to punish them, so that they might learn that one is punished by the very things by which one sins. Isn't that interesting? So they started worshiping, and I wonder if that has anything to do with the bronze serpent that Moshe raised up. I don't know. All right, so if Leviticus was the kingdom mysteries, as I said earlier, then Numbers, or Bamidbar, the wilderness wandering, can be seen as a short season. Does 40 play into the little season? All right, do you guys understand what I'm saying right here? So I think I said earlier tonight, the Leviticus comes across to me as kind of the instructions of the millennial kingdom, right? This is, they wanted to enter into the land just like we want to enter into this kingdom of Mashiach, right? You have to learn how to be holy, how to be righteous, how to be set apart, not to rebel, not to transgress, not to be unclean, right? And so you have that in Leviticus, and they're given these instructions, and then they rebel, and they have to go 40 years. All right, so this is what it says again in Wisdom of Solomon 16:6. So I wonder if let me just read this for you. For when the terrible rage of wild animals came upon your people, and they were being destroyed by the bites of writhing serpents, and we'll get to that in a few weeks, your wrath did not continue to end, but they were troubled for a small season. You could say for a little season. They were troubled for a little season. So let's put ourselves in that little season. Okay, so let's think, okay, so we have been cast out of the kingdom. Our ancestors have. We are now in this little season that they might be admonished, having a sign of Yeshua, a sign of salvation. And this is referring to what Yahusha said in Yochanan 3 and John 3 about, just as Moshe lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, to put them in remembrance of the commandment of your Torah. This is amazing, guys. So that's the whole point. The whole point of this little season, of course, Satan wants to deceive us. It's the age of deception. Why does he want to deceive us? So he can accuse us. And what can he accuse us of? Transgressing the Torah. And on the flip, Yahuwah puts us into, remember now, a wilderness can be a place, but it can also be a state of mind, right? A state of the soul, the wilderness of the soul, the Azazel spirit, right? Because he wanders about. And the point of you can even call this the outer darkness if you want. The point of being here is where we're at in history is to look up, see Yahusha, and remember the Torah. And of course, we have this happening all over the world. It's really exciting to see so many people waking up and returning to his instructions in righteous living. So I'm going to ask this question. Will Yahusha's next appearance play out like what we read right here? This is chapter 5, and this is describing, I believe, and I'm going to be giving a presentation on this, the moment when the righteous arrived in the kingdom to come to the earth. And it says this: then the righteous will stand with great confidence in the presence of those who have oppressed them. I think this is the Nazarene arriving, and those who make light of their labors. What is making light of their labors? That their works, their fruit, right? The idea that they believed in the commands and they guarded the commands, and the others were like, they made light of that. They're like, why are you doing that? You're spitting on the cross. When the unrighteous see them, they will be shaken with dreadful fear, and they will be amazed at the unexpected Yeshua, salvation of the righteous. They will speak to one another in repentance, and in anguish of spirit, of ruach, they will groan. These are the persons whom we once held in derision and made by a byword of reproach, fools that we were. We thought that their lives were madness, and that their end was without honor. We have been numbered among the children of Allahayam, and why is their lot among the holy ones? So it was we who strayed from the way of truth. This is the final realization, the tragedy of realizing that they were on the wrong side. So it was we who strayed from the way of the truth. This is the wicked speaking. And the light of righteousness did not shine on us. They thought they were. They thought they were on the side of Yahusha the whole time. And the sun did not rise upon us. We took our fill of the paths of lawlessness and destruction. And we journeyed through trackless deserts. There it is again, the journeying through the wilderness theme. But the way of Yahweh we have not known. What has our arrogance profited us? And what good has our boasted wealth brought us? Wisdom of Shalom 5, 1-8. All right, so I'm not going to skip this verse here, but it's, of course, Yahusha talking about how, well, you can see what's highlighted. He says that my Father giveth you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of Allahayam is he which cometh down from heaven and giveth life unto the world. I think he's personally saying there that he was there in the wilderness generation and that they were there to learn of him. And this is what the Pharisees, of course, tripped over, that the very Yahweh who was there feeding them in the wilderness, he was there standing before him. So, okay. The census. I'm going to ask the question, which house are you? Because if you noticed, I'm not a math guy, and don't make me add up all the numbers, but there were a lot of numbers there. They were all given census. Of course, as I think I mentioned, or you may have noticed, the Levites were not. And that's kind of interesting. I want to pay attention to that. Now, we see here in Numbers chapter 1, what we read tonight, and Yahweh, the ever-living, set words in order toward Al-Mashahah in the wilderness of Sinai, in the tent of meeting, in the first of the second Kadash, which is kind of interesting. They had just crossed Passover. They had just celebrated the Passover feast. They got through the week of unleavened bread. And he's like, all right, it's go time. Let's go. Let's get ready for war. You figure everyone was really excited. In the second year of their going forth from Matzrim to declare, take the sum of the head of the assemblies of the sons of Yasharel, of their families of the house of their fathers. All right. So I asked the question, well, if we're the sons of Yasharel, who are you going to be numbered with? Right? Well, when we go into I've asked this question many times. When we go to New Jerusalem, what gate are you going to go through? I love to ask Christians this. I'm like, you realize that there's because they're like, I'm not Israel. I'm not that's another people. I'm like, well, there's no gate to the Gentiles. So there's no gate for Edom or Esau. So which one are you going to enter into? All right. Well, that's the thing, right? I don't know. I mean, by default, I'm going to look for Ephraim or Manasseh. I'm going to look for Ephraim, unless if somebody says, "Hey, no, you're supposed to go to Reuben or or Dan. I'll be like, sweet. Dan, maybe you'll go to Dan. Who knows? Revelation chapter 21. All right. So here's what it says in Matthew chapter 12. How do you become numbered in any tribe? Right? That's the first question we need to ask. How do you actually become numbered in Israel? And this is what Yahushua says. While he yet talked to the people, behold, his mother and his brethren stood without, desiring to speak with him. This is kind of one of those ouch passages. Then one said unto him, behold, thy mother and thy brethren stand without, desiring to speak with thee. But he answered, and there's been a lot of commentary on this. Were they kind of rude outside? Were they there to kind of disbar him, and were they embarrassed by him and trying to stop him? What was going on with the situation? But he answered and said unto him that told him, who is my mother and who are my brethren? And he stretched forth his hand toward his talmidim and said, behold, my mother and my brethren, for whosoever shall do the will of my Father which is in heaven, the same is my brother and sister and mother. Matthew 12. So we know on a spiritual level that is how we become his children. And of course, you don't want the rod of iron being brought out on your butt and being disciplined in a way that you are cast out, right? You want to be numbered amongst them. We see the same story in Luke. For lack of time, I'll kind of just skip over that. But interestingly enough, the Levites, according to Numbers 149, they were not numbered among them. So here's this amazing passage from the teaching of Silvanus. Now, apparently, the Silvanus was a contemporary of Paul, maybe a companion of Paul. And I think that this book was found in the Nag Hammadi text. And it says this. If this doesn't excite you, then I don't know. I don't know what to say. There's nothing more I can do. But he who makes himself like Allahayam is one who does nothing unworthy of Allahayam, according to the statement of Paul, who has become like Mashiach. Some of you are like, Paul, like, I was going to, okay, whatever. I was going to make a jab, but that was going to be a bad dad joke. Let's keep reading. For who shows reverence for Allahayam while not wanting to do things which are pleasing to him? For piety is that which is from the heart, and piety from the heart characterizes every soul which is near to Allahayam. Just follow this through. The soul which is a member of Allahayam's household. So there's the theme right here, right? We want to be numbered. We want to be numbered in Yasharel, in his household, is one which is kept pure. We just learned that in Leviticus. He spelled it out for us. You're going to go into Canaan. It's a very impure place. If you don't remain pure, you're going to blaspheme my name. And the soul which has put on Mashiach is one which is pure. It is impossible for it to sin. I mean, this is purely Paul language, just so you know. Like you can't sin. If you are walking as Mashiach walked, you're not sinning. You're not transgressing the Torah. If you are transgressing the Torah, then you are not putting on Mashiach. Now, where Mashiach is, their sin is idle. Let Mashiach alone enter your world, and let him bring to naught all powers which have come upon you. Let him enter the temple which is within you. So remember, the whole idea of the temple in heaven is the Melchizedek, right? The living stones, our body. That's the kingdom mysteries, that we are the temple. And may you become for him a priest and a Levite, entering in purity. Blessed are you, O soul, if you find this one in your temple. Blessed are you still more if you perform his service. But he who will defile the temple of Allahayam, that one Allahayam will destroy. This should put fear into everyone. If we're like, I'm the temple, my body's a temple. And it's like, oh, is it? Well, if you defile it, he's going to destroy it. For you lay yourself open, O man, if you cast this one out of your temple. For whenever the enemies do not see Mashiach in you, then they will come into you armed in order to crush you. So the point here of this story is live like a Levite. And I had stated this all through Leviticus, that even though there's 613 laws in the Torah, and even though they don't necessarily all apply to us, like, for example, I'm not a menstruating woman. I'm not a farmer. I don't own animals. I don't own oxen or dogs or anything like that, right? There are some things that don't immediately apply to me. nevertheless, they kind of, in a spiritual sense, they all do apply to me. And a great example is the Levite. I'm not a Levite priest, but we're supposed to be priests in the kingdom. And I've shown that the Melchizedek priests and the Levites are the same laws applied to them. And that's how we need to see ourselves, as a Levite priest, a priest in the kingdom. All right. Let's see. So this is kind of interesting. And so read this again, keeping what we just read, teaching a Sylvanus in mind. And the stranger that draws near shall be executed. This comes from Numbers 1. We read this tonight. And the Levites shall pitch their tent in a circuit round about for the Mashkan dwelling place of the revealed precepts. So even though the Levites aren't necessarily going to war, at least not in this account in Numbers, and they're not being numbered, they kind of have to be some badass dudes, because they are there. They are surrounding the tabernacle. They're the last defense. If everyone else falls, they're the last defense. And it's like anybody who steps foot, who draws near, they will be executed. And who has to execute them? It's not Reuben. It's not Yehuda. It's not Yeshachar. It's the Levites. They're executing. Who does that bring to mind? Phinehas in Numbers 25. He comes to mind. What did he do? Well, again, for lack of time, I think I'll skip this. Well, we'll get there anyways in several weeks. He basically takes a big old lance. There's a man and woman having intercourse right there at the temple, butt naked. He just takes the lance and right through them and carries them around the camp. He did his duty. He did exactly what he was instructed to do. A lot of people read that and go, well, that's cruel. It's like, no, this is what Yahweh had just told him, that this is what he was supposed to do. All right. Let's see if, I have a little bit more commentary, guys. Hope you guys don't mind, on chapter 1. The census is for war. We saw that from a son of 20 years and higher, of course, Michael went through all the numbers of 20. They're going forth to warfare. They're getting ready for that. Well, so let's compare what's happening with the war scroll. This would be the war of the sons of light against the sons of darkness. This was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. I find this text amazing. And a lot of people find it to be an embarrassment, because they're like, well, it didn't come to pass. And I'm asking the question, well, what if it did? What if this book actually came to pass, and that it actually describes Yasharel coming perhaps down from the north country, and spreading out and conquering the world over a, I can't remember, was it 50-year time period? It's a long period that they're fighting these wars against Beliar. And it says the first attack of the sons of light will be initiated against the forces of the sons of darkness, which is the army of Belial. And Belial is the same transfer as Azazel, in my opinion. The troops are so the first army they go up against are the troops are from Edom, Moab, the sons of Ammon, the Amalekites, Philistia, and the troops of the Kittim of Asher. This apparently, again, may describe why Edom and Moab were destroyed, because this came about. Supporting them are those who have violated the covenant. Isn't that interesting? Those who have violated the covenants are the first to be destroyed. The sons of Levi, the sons of Yehuda, and the sons of Benjamin, and those exiled in the wilderness will fight against them. So there's the wilderness theme again. And this could be speaking about the blessed land, the hidden wilderness. It could very well be. Against all their troops, when the exiles of the sons of light return from the wilderness of the peoples. Again, that might be a hidden wilderness passage. The camp in the wilderness of Yerushalayim. And that's, of course, from the war of the sons of light against the sons of darkness. Here's another passage. Oh, I did this one just for you, Dan. During the remaining 33 years of the war. So I thought that was kind of fun there. The men of renown, those called of the congregation, and all the heads of the congregation's family shall choose for themselves men of war for all the lands of the nations. So we're seeing a replay here of the book of Numbers. But this time it's done right? Because in Numbers, they're preparing for war, and they were supposed to go in and conquer, and they didn't. They botched it. They messed up. But in this book, the War of Sons of Light, it actually happens. They're able to go and defeat the bad guys. We see let's see another passage here. The men of the army shall be from 40 to 50 years old. So this is kind of interesting, because in Numbers it's 20, but for some reason there's an age jump now that the warriors have to. It's kind of odd. I was looking at this going, why 40 to 50 years old? A 10-year span there, starting age 40. The commissioners of the camp shall be, because I think the temple priests were 30 to 50, So again, maybe someone out there has better wisdom on this than I do at the moment. The commissioners of the camps shall be from 50 to 60 years old. The officers shall also be from 40 to 50 years old. All those who strip the slain, plunder the spoil, cleanse the land, guard the arms, and he who prepares the provisions, all these shall be from 25 to 30 years old. No youth nor woman shall enter their encampments from the time they leave Jerusalem to go to battle until their return. No one crippled, blind, nor lame, nor a man who has a permanent blemish on his skin, or a man affected with ritual uncleanness of his flesh. None of these shall go with them to battle. And this is just all playing out Leviticus, the whole thing. All of them shall be volunteers for battle, pure of spirit and flesh, and prepared for the day of vengeance. Any man who is not ritually clean in respect of his genitals on the day of battle shall not go down with them to battle, for holy angels are present with their army. Oh yeah, let me go up here. So I talked about that a few weeks ago about the idea of guardian angels going into battle with them, which is really fascinating. And the idea of, we were talking about sexual cleanliness and how we often don't think about that. We think we're sinning privately, right? We do these things and nobody's noticing, and our guardian angels are just there like, great, thanks for making me unclean right now. This is just perfect. Why don't I just leave you alone while you do this, whatever. And so it's basically saying there, make sure, like, if you're sexually unclean, you're not going into battle. And I wanted to point out, and I remember now why I want to talk about Phinehas real quick, because in the Aramaic Targum, it says this: swearing by my name, I say to him, behold, I decree to him my covenant of shalom. And this is speaking, Yahuwah speaking of Phinehas. And it says, and will make him an angel of the covenant, that he may ever live to announce the redemption at the end of the days. So if you were to line this up with the war of the sons of darkness, light against the sons of darkness, was he one of the angels? Was Phinehas literally one of the angels that was leading the soldiers, sons of Yasharel, into battle? Something to think about. I kind of got excited about that because he was so zealous for the purity of the tabernacle that he was selected for that purpose. All right. And once more from teaching of Silvanus. Now, I talked about, of course, this idea that the entry point into the millennial kingdom may very well have actually been a flip of Leviticus and Numbers, but done properly. Hopefully you guys understand what I'm talking about, right? They didn't mess it up. They came in, they saw, they conquered, they lived according to the righteousness in the Torah. But there's also a different type of war. I could quote Paul, the armor of God, which I think he takes that from Yeshayahu, from Isaiah. But there's a war of the mind, right? A spiritual war around us. Like we're not talking about actual taking up lances and swords here, right? We're talking about the full armor of Yah. And this is what it says: abolish every childish time of life, acquire for yourself strength of mind and soul, and intensify the struggle against every folly of the passions of love and base wickedness, and love of praise and fondness of contention, and tiresome jealousy and wrath, and anger and the desire of avarice. Guard your camp and weapons and spears. Arm yourself and all the soldiers, which are so it tells you what the soldiers are here, right? Arming yourself, which are the words, and the commanders, which are the counsels, and your mind as a guiding principle. And so we just need to remember that we are at war every single day. Right now, we are in the wilderness. We are in the diaspora. We are being trained. We are being chastised and molded by Yahuwah, and we want to be obedient, and we want to, recognize that we are at war. My son, throw every robber out of your gates. It's always a good idea. A lot of robbers in my neighborhood right now. Guard all your gates with torches, which are the words, and you will acquire through all these things a quiet life. But he who will not guard these things will become like a city which is desolate, since it has been captured. All kinds of wild beasts have trampled upon it. It's interesting. This is how Revelation ends. For thoughts which are not good are evil wild beasts. And your city will be filled with robbers, and you will not be able to acquire peace, but only all kinds of savage wild beasts. The wicked one, who is a tyrant, is lord over these. While directing this, he, the wicked one, is beneath the great mire. The whole city, which is your soul, will perish. So that's a nice kind of way to look at the combat situation of the being of Levites from a day-to-day spiritual basis. All right. Thank you guys for being patient while I went through this. And as I go through each of these, my commentary actually thins down. So I'm going to continue reading the ordering of the encampment. And then, of course, I'll hand it back to you, Michael. And Yahweh, the ever-living, set words in order toward Al-Mashahan and toward Al-Aaron to declare, a man shall pitch his tent by his standard with the military ensign of his father's house of the sons of Yasharel displayed conspicuously. How exciting is that there were actually military ensigns that each house had? And I really want to do a study sometime on matching these up perhaps with the ensigns in Europe for the different houses. In a circuit round about shall they pitch their tents in the sites of the tent of meeting. And the ones eastward from the rising of the sun shall pitch their tents for the banner of the camp of the army of Yehuda. And the lifted up chief of the sons of Yehuda shall be Nakashawan, son of Amminadab. I want to say Bamidbar, but and his army and those numbered of them were 14,600. And those who pitched their tent beside him shall be of the tribe of Yeshachar. And the lifted up chief of the sons of Yeshachar shall be Nathaniel, son of Suar. And his army and those numbered of them were 50,400. The tribe of Zebulun and the lifted up chief of the sons of Zebulun shall be Eliab, the son of Chalon. And his army and those numbered of them were 50,400. All the numbered ones of the camp of Yehuda were 100,000 and 80,000 and 6,400 according to their armies. These shall go forth first. The standard of the camp of Reuben shall be southward according to their armies. And the lifted up chief of the tribe of Reuben shall be Eliyatsawar, the son of Shadayah. And his army and those numbered of them were 640,500. And those who pitched their tent beside him shall be the tribe of, this would be Simeon or Shama'an. And the lifted up chief of the sons of Simeon shall be Shelamiah, the son of, oh, here we go, Sayuraya Shadaya. Actually, I think I did okay on that one. His army and those numbered of them were 950,300. And the tribe of Gad and the lifted up chief of the sons of Gad shall be Eliasaph, the son of Reuel. And his army and those numbered of them were 40,650. All the ones numbered of the camp of Reuben were 100,001 and 50,450 according to their armies. And he shall go forth second. Then shall go forth the tent of meeting from the camp of the Levites in the midst of the encampment. As they pitch their tents, in like manner shall he go forth, each man in his place alongside their standards. The standard of the camp of Ephraim, according to their armies, seaward, and the lifted up chief of the sons of Ephraim shall be Allah Shamaya, the son of Amahud. And his army and those numbered of them were 40,500, and beside him shall be the tribe of Manasseh. And the lifted up chief of the sons of Manasseh shall be Gamaliel, son of Fadahah Sa'ur. Also the tribe of Benjamin. And the lifted up chief of the sons of Benjamin shall be Abiadan, the son of Gabanuya. And his army and those numbered of them were 30,500. All those numbered the camp of Ephraim were 100,000 and 8,100 according to their armies. And they shall go forth as the third part. And the standard of the camp of Dan is northward according to their armies. And the lifted up chief of the sons of Dan shall be Akayah Azar, the son of Amaya Shadiah. And his army and those numbered of them were 2,000 and 3,700. And those that pitched their tents beside him shall be the tribe of Asher. And the lifted up chief of the sons of Asher shall be Phagaial, the son of Acharon. And his army and those numbered of them were 140,500. And the tribe of Naphtali, or Naphthuliah. And the lifted up chief of the sons of Naphtali shall be Ekayah the son of Ahanan. And his army, and those numbered of them were 350,400. All that were numbered of the camp of Dan were 100,000 and 750,600. They shall go forth with their standards. These are the numbered of the sons of Yasharel, the house of their fathers. All those who were numbered of the camps according to their armies were 600,000 and 3,550. But the Levites were not numbered among the sons of Yasharel, like that which Yahuwah the ever living had established with Athmashahah. And the sons of Yasharel did fashion like all that which was established by Yahuwah unto Mashahah. In that manner they pitched their tents by their standards, and in the manner they went forth, each man according to their families, after the house of their fathers. I am taking a break. I'm handing over to you, Michael.
All right. I think it gets better. Chapter 3 and 4. I don't think he has to do too many names. But okay, let me share the screen again. Here we go. Hopefully I'm good to go there now. Okay, so I made some notes as Dan and Noah were talking. These weren't in my original notes, but I just want to talk about it. So I have this theory. Again, it's not bulletproof, probably many holes with it, that we're going to be resurrected under the age of 20. And so Noah has a theory that the 144 are women. Zach Bauer has it that they're children. Just basically based on what I've already discussed on 20, and how Joshua and Caleb were the only ones who entered in the promised land. Everyone under the age of 20, Yeshua says, come to me like a child. I don't know. Just throwing that out there. You guys.
Quick question on Zach Bauer. When he says they're children, is he basing off of Herod, the children that were killed by chance?
It's been 5 or so years since I listened to it. I wouldn't doubt it if that's what it is. I know his wife. It was his wife's idea. Okay, so yeah, 20. Just throw that out there. Look into that. Okay, the next thing is Noah was talking about how the kingdom is Leviticus, right? And it shows what laws we're doing. Little promo. Dan and I did a video on what will heaven be like with cosmology. We kind of hit on it. It's like that he kind of shows you, as above, so below. He's showing you what we're going to be doing. A lot of the prophet sections. We're keeping his laws, Zechariah 14, Leviticus too. I see it the same as Noah. I see him like a Melchizedek order has similar laws. It's just how you're chosen to be that priest. We have to be a priest, and priests are only, Levites are only via the bloodline. So to me, it makes sense that there was a priesthood before the Levites with the Melchizedek. Noah also talked about bread from heaven, and that could have been the sun as well in the wilderness. That word bread, I haven't checked it, is probably broma. So we are bromology. That word is actually bread or meat doing the Father's will. And then finally, Noah mentioned what gate. You're asking Christians what gate. They're like, oh, I'm a Baptist, but if they have to literally throw away New Jerusalem and say that's for the Jews in order to get to heaven, because that's what the church does. But it's just something funny that I was into looking in the Maseroth, and I was looking into, where I was born. And again, I'm not saying this is official, but I was looking into this guy's book said that I was Zebulon. So I thought it was pretty funny. I actually got a shirt, and I'm somewhat official because it's basically that I just claim that for now. I'll let Father sort that out when I get hopefully resurrected. Okay, so chapter 2, I don't have too much. I had way more in 1 as well. In this parasha, now the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, sons of Israel shall camp each by his own standard with the banners of their father's household. They shall camp around the tent of meeting at a distance. So this parasha next explains how the Israelites' camp was to be arranged around the tabernacle according to their tribes. This arrangement looked like a cross with the tabernacle in the middle and the 3 tribes of each side. So a lot of people are anti-cross. I don't know. It appears this is how, they were arranged. That's pretty cool with Levi in the middle. I thought this was cool too. The tribal order also follows the pattern of Jacob's wives. So first the sons of Leah, second the sons of Rachel, third the sons of the maids, except God. He was born of Leah's maids, who replaced Levi in the third born position. Okay, so now I want to focus on the banners. So the sons of Israel shall camp each by his own standard with the banners of their father's household. So of the banners is this word degal in Hebrew. Midrash, take it for what it's worth, Midrash, taught that each tribe had a distinctive flag in different color corresponding to the precious stones on Aaron's breastplate. And it was from these banners that the governments learned to provide themselves with flags of various colors. I was doing some research. Again, I'm not sure how official this is, but there was only one country, and I forgot it, that had purple in it. I'm going to talk about purple later, but I thought that was interesting. Purple's royalty as well. What do you guys think about that? Each one had their flags based on the breastplate. We talked about that, living stones and stuff. Some rabbinic commentary. For example, Reuben's flag was red with a picture of a mandrake. I think some books say the mandrake was the fruit in the garden. Simeon's flag was green with a sword and a gate of Shechem. Tradition also described the flag of Levi with the priestly breastplate on a red and black background. I wonder if that's where the Rothschilds get it, red shield. Trying to say that they're Levites. Okay, so word study. I forgot the word, but for that word banners in this thing. So let's see. The sons of Israel shall camp each by his own standard with the banners. So that word with the banners, I thought it was very interesting. That was used in Genesis 1:4. From the night and let them be for signs. So that word banners is signs. I know Miss Pamela is on the full moon. Noel's doing it as well. I am too this year. And this is this is how they start the study. It's basically Genesis 1:14. That word seasons is moed. You should be using the signs up in the heavens for the moed. That includes the stars, the sun and the moon. And I just thought it was awesome that that's the same word for banners, or the insignia of the households of their fathers. That made me think of Enoch, where it says angels are stars in the sky. The ones who obey are for signs and seasons. The one who disobeyed fell. I don't know. I thought that was a cool word study. I have to, dig deeper in that. But their banners are the signs in Genesis 1:14. Okay, I think the rest I have is just 3 passages of the Palestinian Targum and what they say on each of these. So on 3, Noel and I did a 25 chapter study on Genesis Targum, and there was just so much meat there. Number 3, now those who camp on the east side towards the sunrise shall be of the standard of the camp of Judah by their armies, and the leader of the sons of Judah, Nashon, the son of Abinadab. This is what the Palestinian Targum says for this verse. Obviously, it's a lot more. The length of the camp of Israel should be 12 miles, and its breadth 12 miles. And they who encamp eastward to the sunrise shall be of the standard of the camp of Jehudah by their hosts, spreading over 4 miles. And his standard shall be of silk, of 3 colors corresponding with those of the precious stones which are in the blessed plate, sardius, topaz, and carbuncle. And upon it shall be expressed and sent forth the names of the 3 tribes of Jehudah, Issachar, and Zebulun. And in the midst shall be written, Arise, Lord, and let thine enemies be scattered, and thine adversaries be driven away before thee. And upon it shall be set forth the figure of the young lion. Judah is the young lion. And the rabbah of Beni Jehudah shall be Nashon bar Aminabab. If you followed our Targum study, you would know that the Palestinian most times had something way different. That's just the first one. The next one I have is number 10. On the south side shall be the standard of the camp by Reuben, by their armies, and the leader of the sons of Reuben, Eleazar the son of Shedor. Same thing with Palestinian. By the standard of the camp of Reuben, they shall encamp southward by their hosts, spreading over 4 miles. And his standard shall be of silk, again of silk, of 3 colors corresponding with those of the precious stones in the breastplate. Asmarad, sapphire, and adamant. Dan and I actually talked about adamant in our Freemason series. That's interesting. It was a plumb line. It was like a diamond. And it should be expressed and set forth the names of the 3 tribes of Reuben, Shimeon, and Gad. And in the midst of it be written, Hear Israel, the Lord of our God is one. And upon it shall be set forth the figure of a stag. Some who have thought that there should have been upon it the figure of a young ox. But Moshe the prophet altered it, that the sin of the calf might not be remembered against them. And the rabbah sat over the host of the tribe of Reuben was Eleazar by Shedar. That's interesting about the colors, the different stones, and then also the golden calf. I think it says, where did it go? Sin of the calf. I think I have one more on this one. Oh, no, 2 more. Number 18, it says, and the west shall be the standard of the camp of Ephraim by their armies, and the leaders of the sons of Ephraim shall be Elishama, the son of Amabad. So Palestinian 2:18 says, the camp of Ephraim by the standard of their host shall pitch on their west. Their camp spreadeth over 4 miles, and their standard is of silk of 3 colors, corresponding with the precious stones in the breastplate, ligor, agate, and amethyst. And upon it sets forth the names of the 3 tribes, Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin, having written in the midst. And the cloud of the Lord was over them in the going forward of the host. And upon it was set forth the figure of a young man. And the rabbah set over the tribe of Ephraim. I just think it's awesome. Each one has its own stone, its own colors, even has a little verse here, and sometimes it adds a little bit more. It's pretty cool. Number 25. On the north side shall be the standard of the camp of Dan. I thought that was hilarious that Dan never changes. Danish, Danmark, by their armies and the leaders of the sons of Dan, Ahiezer, the son of Ammishaddai. The standard of the camp of Dan shall be to the north with their hosts, and the space of their camp shall spread over 4 miles. This standard should be of silk of 3 colors, corresponding with the stones in the breastplate, chrysolite, beryl, and jasper. And it shall be expressed and set forth the names of the 3 tribes of Dan, Naphtali, and Asher. And upon it shall be expressed. And in his encampment shall he say, Return, Lord, and dwell in the glory in the midst of the myriads of Israel. And upon it shall also be set forth the figure of a basilic serpent. Genesis 49:17. The rabbah set over the host of Dan was Achiezer, Bear, Armashadai. And then this is what Genesis 49:17. Dan shall be a serpent in the way, a horned snake in the path, that biteth the horse's heels, so that his rider falleth backwards. That's pretty interesting. That's all I got for 2. Yeah, it looks like I start here with 3. So off to Dan for some commentary, brother.
Yeah, I don't have much, but as you guys are talking, I'm thinking about the Royal Arch masonry. When I was in the Royal Arch House, it was in the setting of being in the temple. And there's a few different sections when you're in an open lodge, and they've got 4 different banners that represent the different tribes. And it's Dan, Ephraim, Reuben, and Judah. And in Dan's, it's blue, and it has an eagle with its wings down. For Ephraim, it's red, and it's got a calf with horns, so a bull. Reuben, it's got a priest-like character. It's kind of like holding his arms like this. And that's the color purple. And then, of course, you got Judah, which has got the lion represented with white. I've heard before that the Antichrist is going to come out of the tribe of Dan. I'm not really sure what that's based in. I don't know if you guys have heard that before, but love to hear your thoughts on that. And then the last thing I had, I don't think this is related at all, but maybe it is. For whatever reason, every time I see the Cadillac symbol, I think of this. I think of the priesthood. So I don't know if there's any connection with the logo, with the Cadillac logo and these various tribes, but it always reminds me of it when I see it. So any thoughts on the tribe of Dan and the Antichrist coming from that tribe?
Michael, do you have any thoughts on that?
If you would ask me 5 years ago when I was a futurist, I think I had some, but it's been deleted, so I don't have much.
Yeah, I'm kind of there too. I don't have anything. I've heard that so many times. It's one of those things where you hear it enough and you're like, well, it must be true, right? But I don't have the research to back that. Right? It's certainly nothing I've ever covered.
I do know Dan's not mentioned in Revelation, so some say that he's going to, make Yah mad and throw him out of the promise. But in Ezekiel, he does have a lot of land allotment, so I don't know how that works between people's theology on that. But.
Now, obviously, everyone here is looking at a picture of the Tav in the wilderness, and for a while, I was kind of criticizing this idea of it looking like a Tav or a cross. Now, of course, I went through my phase that I think a lot of us go through when we come over the Torah, and I was like, the cross is pagan, that kind of stuff, and I no longer feel that way anymore. For many, many reasons. But, this makes sense to me, this illustration, because it was a military formation. I always imagined that maybe it was more like a big circle because, try to herd children, right? Like they're running all over the place and, the camps kind of spread out. So I don't know if it looked exactly like this, like a fascist like a Nazi 1938 parade or something like that. But and another thing that I used to criticize too is how a lot of illustrators, they would purposely make it look like a cross, like they would stretch out one really long, and I was like, come on now. But when you do look at it, Yehuda actually does have bigger numbers. So Yehuda looks like they have, now again, I didn't take out my calculator and all this, but Yehuda has 74,600, and nobody, Dan kind of comes close, but nobody else is even like 12,000 close. So you can see there that Judah is larger, which would make more of a natural looking, I guess, cross formation. Something that I didn't have the time to go over. And because of the nature of my research, I got to just turn it out. I don't always have, I try to get the snowball effects where I discover things along the way. I don't always have the opportunities to go down these large, like, thesis questions. And one of them is, does this formation actually play out to Yasharil today? Now, Michael, you had mentioned Dan, like Denmark, Sweden, stuff like that, right? The interesting thing about Dan, and no offense, Dan, you're a wonderful gentleman, but the thing about Dan is what we find is that they tended to name places after themselves, and it's true. Like in the Paleo and the modern Hebrew, and even in the English, it's still Dan. It's just Dan, and so we see the Dan settlements all over the world, but they seem to go up north. And what do you see here? They're on the north end, right? So it's kind of interesting. I don't know if we can make a case that Asher and Naphtali were also kind of settled up in the north. Ephraim and Manasseh, though, the west, I could see that. I could totally see that. And then Yehuda in the immediate east, with Zebulun and Issachar in the far east, I could see that too, with the Mongols maybe. Though I think that Dr. P's theory is that Naphtali might have been the Mongols. Not really sure. Anyways, that's something to think through sometime. And is this prophetic? Did this pan out in the larger picture as Yasharil spread out all over the earth and settled down? Here's a couple more illustrations here. And I like this chart here. I wish they gave all the names, but you can see how each of them surround these families the tabernacle. They're to defend it. The heart of the Tav here is the tabernacle, the body on the Tav, right? It's really beautiful. We see that Ephraim means to be fruitful. Reuben means behold the sun. Dan means judgment. He judged. Levi, attached, pledged, joined to, and Yehuda is praised. All different, elements describing this. So won't spend too much more time on that. But this you guys all know what you're looking at right now. We're looking at the Nazca lines in Peru. And so just take one more look at this, right? There's a lot of different ideas out there on what the Nazca lines are. There's some great theories on how they actually work, like astronomical clocks. And maybe this did too, I don't know. But what if this big old Tav in the wilderness marching around was Yahuwah telling the prince of power of the air, the principalities in the ether? They would look down and see this big old Tav and go, that's Yahuwah's ensign right there. That's his mark. Those are his people. What if he did this actually as a way to let the Elohim up in the sky know? And then, of course, that's one of the main theories, right? With these lines down in Peru, these Nazca lines, that they were somehow communicative with the gods up in of course, the ancient alien crowd loves this, right? But they were somehow communicating with the gods. So something to think about. Just food for thought. And of course, you guys know I couldn't pass this up, talking about ensigns without showing Tavs all over the world. And of course, when the curtain goes up and on the stage, we see the sun never sets in the British Empire. Clearly a Tav. And of course, we know Manasseh and Ephraim, the unicorn. And I would think that, of course, Freemasonry would be, the Scottish Rite particularly, would all be all over Ephraim. We know that their symbol is the unicorn. We see the tav there. We see the lion and the unicorn. In Britain, the union of Ephraim and Yehuda, which is a fulfillment of the prophecy given it to us in Isaiah, which says, and he shall set up an ensign for the nations. At least I think this is a fulfillment of prophecy. And shall assemble the outcasts of Yasharel and gather together the dispersed of Yehuda from the four corners of the earth. The envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Yehuda shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Yehuda, and Yehuda shall not vex Ephraim. And of course, I think that this is a residue of the millennial kingdom. I'm sorry, Dan, you're probably like, what freak show did I what show did I join tonight? Okay, so you guys all know this, that in Deuteronomy it describes the unicorn, it identifies them with Ephraim and Manasseh. And of course, let's see. Oh yeah, and I gave this like 12 15 weeks ago or whatever. Here we see the Tav and the Jolly Roger. These three here you're looking at are, I guess, are the only apparently preserved Jolly Rogers that we have, that were actually flown. They were all black at one time, and then of course the colors faded. But it is the Tav. A lot of people say it is reminiscent of the Knights Templar. That might be true. I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm going to tell my children that this meant death to Israel. That's what I think it meant. Of course, there's sex magic and other things involved in this with the crossbones, but I think that this meant that the Tav was a symbol of Yasharel, and this was death to Yasharel towards the end there. That's what I'm going to tell my children. Okay. Do we have any more, anything else you guys want to throw out there before we get on to chapter 3?
Dan, you got something on Ephraim and Masonry, or no? Okay,
right.
He's got nothing there.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and read this, and then back to you guys. So, and these are the chapter 3, and these are the generations of Aaron and Meshaha, and the day Yahweh, the ever-living, set words in order with Meshaha on Mount Sinai. These are the names of the sons of Aaron: Nadab and the firstborn, and Abihu, or Abiyahwa, and Eleazar. And you guys said this was going to get easier. I mean, I don't know. And Ayathumar. These are the names of the sons of Aaron, the priests who were anointed, whom he filled their hand to minister for the priest. But Nadab died, and Abihu, or Abiyahwa, to the face of Yahuwah, the ever-living, when they brought near strange, loathsome fire to the face of Yahuwah in the wilderness of Sinai, and there existed no sons to them. And Eleazar and Ayathumar ministered as priests to the face of Aaron their father. And Yahuwah, the ever-living, set forth words in order toward Al-Mashahah to declare, bring near the tribe of Levi and cause them to stand to the face of Aaron the priest, and they shall minister unto him and shall guard his observances and observances of all the congregation of the face of the tent of meeting, to serve the service of the Mashkan dwelling place. And they shall guard all the implements of the tent of meeting and the observances of the sons of Yasharel, to fashion the prescribed work of the service of the Mashkan dwelling place. And you will gift the Levites unto Aaron and unto his sons. They are completely given to him from the sons of Yasharel. And you shall commission Aaron and his sons, and they shall guard him like their priesthood. And the stranger who draws near, he shall put to death. And Yahuwah, the ever-living, set words in order toward Al-Mashahah to declare, and behold, even I have taken for myself the Levites from the midst of the sons of Yasharel, in the place of all the firstborn that opens the womb from the sons of Yasharel. Therefore the Levites will exist to me, for to me are all the firstborn. For on the day that I struck against the firstborn in Mitzrayim, I set apart unto me all the firstborn in Yasharel, from Adam and perpetually from beast. They shall exist to me. I am Yahuwah, the ever-living. And Yahuwah, the ever-living, set forth words in order toward Mashahah in the wilderness of Sinai to declare, number the sons of Levites after the house of their fathers, every male from sons, a Kadash, and higher, you shall number them. And Mashahah numbered them according to the mouth of Yahuwah. So that's kind of interesting right there with the play on word of the mouth, like that which he was commanded. And Mashah numbered them upon the mouth of Yahweh the ever-living, like that which he was commanded. And these existed as sons of Levi by their names, Gerashah, and Kuhath, and Marariah. And these are the sons of Gerashon by their families, Laban, Uyah, and Shama, and the sons of Kuhath by their families, Merim, and Yatzahar, and Chabarun, and Azayah. Of Gerashon was the family of Laban, Uyah, and the families of Shema, Ayah. These are them of the families of Gerashon, Uyah. Those numbered of them, according to the tally of all the males from a son of Kedash and higher, those numbered of them were 7,500. The families of the Gerashon, Uyah, who follow after the Mashkan dwelling place, shall pitch their tents seaward. And the lifted up chief of the house of the Gerashon, Uyah, shall be Eliasaph, son of Leal. And the custody of the sons of Gerashon are in the tents of meeting, the Mashkan dwelling place, and the tents and his covering, and the covering for the entrance of the tent of meeting, and the hangings for the enclosure, and the covering for the entrance of the enclosure, which is beside the Mashkan dwelling place, and beside the altar in a circuit roundabout, and his cords for all his work of service. And of Kuhath are the families of the Maramaya, and the families of Yatzharaya, and the families of the Chabaranuya, and the families of the Azaya Alea. These are them of the families of the Kuhathuya. In number were all the males, sons of the Kedash and higher, 8,600, guarding the custody of the Kudash. And the families of the sons of Kuhathuya shall pitch his tents on the side of the Mashkan dwelling place southward, and the lifted up chief of the house, the father of the families of the Kuhathuya, shall be Alayah Safan, son of Azael, and their custody shall be the ark, and the table, and the altars, and all the implements of the Kudash in which they minister in him, and the hanging, and all his work of service. And the lifted up chief of the lifted up chieftains of the Levites shall be Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest. He is the mustering of the ones that guard the custody of the Kudash. Of Marariah was the families of the Machaleah, and the families of the Ma'ushaya. These are them, the families of Marariah. And those numbered of them, according to the tally of all the males from sons of Kedash and higher, were 6,200. And the lifted up chief of the father's house of the families of Marariah was Sa'uraya. That's getting late. This is getting rough. The son of Abiyachael. He shall pitch his tents on the side of the Mashkan dwelling place northward, and he shall muster the charge of the sons of Marariah, and the boards of the Mashkan dwelling place, and his bars, and his columns, and his commanders, and all his implements, and all his work of service, and the columns of the enclosure, and a circuit round about, and their commanders, and their pegs, and their cords. And those who pitch their tent to the face of the Mashkan dwelling place eastward, to the face of the tent of meeting, to the rising of the sun, shall be Mashah and Aaron and his sons. Theirs is the guarding of the custody of the Makudash for the observance of the sons of Yasharel, and the stranger that approaches shall be executed. All those numbered of the Levites, which Mashah and Aaron numbered at the mouth of Yahweh the ever-living, according to their families, all males, sons from Makadosh and higher, were 22,000. And Yahweh the ever-living declared toward Al-Mashah, number all the firstborn males of the sons of the Yasharel, and lift up the tally of their names, and you shall take for yourself the Levites for me. I am Yahweh, in exchange of all the firstborn among the sons of Yasharel, and all the livestock of the Levites, in exchange for all the firstborn among the livestock of the sons of Yasharel, and the Levites shall exist to me. I am Yahweh. And those numbered of the 13 and 200, which were in excess over the Levites from the firstborn of the sons of Yasharel, you shall take 5 shekels for each of their skulls. After the shekel of the Kudash, so you shall take. The shekel is 20 gerahah. And you shall give the silver unto Aaron and unto his sons as the price of redemption for those over and above them. And Mashah took the silver as the price of redemption from those over and above the Levites, from the firstborn of the sons of Yasharel, taking the silver, which was 1,365, according to the shekel of the Kudash. And Mashah gave the silver, the price of redemption, to Aaron and unto his sons, upon the mouth of Yahuwah, as Yahuwah the ever-living had commanded Mashah. Wow, I made it through that. Handing it over to you, Michael.
Yeah, I jinxed you there. I didn't read ahead, I guess. Yeah, that was just as bad as the other two chapters. All right, so I don't have too much again. Let's go over it. Hopefully you guys can see that. Okay. Chapter 3 in Numbers. These are the names of the sons of Aaron, the anointed priests, whom he ordained to serve as priests. So anointed, that's Messiah, the anointed one. What I didn't realize, I know it'd mean anointed with oil. What I didn't realize is to rub or smear with oil or paint. So I thought that was interesting. So the anointed one, David was an anointed one in Book of Enoch. Enoch was an anointed one, but Yeshua is the anointed one. But again, I just thought that was interesting, to rub or smear with oil. Okay, number 4. But Nadab and Abihu died before the Lord when they offered strange fire before the Lord in the wilderness of Sinai, and they had no children. So Eleazar and Ithamar served as priests in the lifetime of their father Aaron. Noel already went through this a couple Torah portions ago, but just for some context. Now Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took their respective fire pans, and after putting fire in them, placed incense on it and offered strange fire before the Lord, which he had not commanded. And the fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord. This is kind of just summarizing. I just wanted to make sure you guys understood that if you're just catching the Torah portion now. What that meant, try Leviticus 10. Okay. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, bring the tribe of Levi near and set them before Aaron the priest. Okay, so bringing the tribe of near. So that word is hakurav. It's here rendered to bring near is properly a sacrificial word and signifies the presenting of a sacrifice or offering to the Lord. So bringing near, come near, placed alongside. It's wedding language too, in the New Testament. It's covenant language. Okay, so number 27 of Kohath was the family of the Amorites, and the family of Israelites, and the family of Hebronites, and the family of Uzzielites. These were the families of the Kohathites. Okay, so the families of the sons of the Kohathites were to camp. The leader of the father household of the Kohathites was Elizaphan, the son of Uzziel. So I wanted to point out that Korah, that should say Korah, not Koran, was the grandson of Kohath. So he was the grandson of Kohath right here. Korah's rebellion, we'll get to it in a few weeks, but Korah's rebellion, so let me summarize that. Korah, along with Dathan, Abiram, and 250 other prominent community leaders, rebelled against Moses and Aaron. They said, you have gone too far. The whole community of Israel has been set apart by the Lord, and he is with all of us. A midrash taught that Korah took issue with Moses in Numbers 16:1, because Moses had, as Numbers 330 reports right here, appointed Elizaphan, right here, the son of Uzziel, as the prince of the Kohathites, and Korah was the son of Uzziel's older brother Ishar, and thus had claim to leadership prior to Elizaphan. He was jealous. He thought he should have been that guy. I know some Targums or something talks about it had something to do with the Tzitzit too, I think. He didn't like it. He wanted it all white or something. I don't know about that. But Korah's rebellion, we'll get that in a few weeks. But I thought it was cool that, is it possible that he rebelled because he wanted this? He wanted this head of household there. I think I have one more. So, Noah read about the Levites, 40 through 51, duties of Levites. I just want to go through some other things about the Levites. So Deuteronomy 30 through 10 reports that the Levites taught the law. Deuteronomy 17 reports that they served as judges. Deuteronomy 10 reports that they blessed Yah's name. 1 Chronicles 23 reports that 38,000 Levite men aged 30 and up, 24,000 were in charge of the work of the temple in Jerusalem. They were officers, magistrates, gatekeepers. They played instruments. King David installed Levites as singers, harps, lyres, and cymbals. David appointed Levites to minister before the ark, to invoke, to praise, to extol God. In Second Chronicles, they at their inauguration of Solomon's temple, they sang. They dressed in fine linen, holding cymbals, lyres, east of the altar, blew trumpets. They exalted God in song. 11 psalms identify them as Korhites. So I just wanted to, we think of Levites, we think of sacrifices and all that kind of stuff, but they were so much more than that. They were the set apart tribe, guys. So we were supposed to be priests and kings. Yeah, I mean, look at all this music. That's pretty cool. And before I hand it back to Dan, I did remember one thing on Ephraimites and Freemasonry. We talked about it during our second degree Freemasonry. I forgot the tribe. It was in Judges, I believe. They had this password called Shibboleth, and this tribe actually killed Ephraim. So we were trying to make the case of a bloodline, and Ephraim is what we're grafted into, possibly. That's what Noel said. And off to Dan.
Thanks, man. Yeah, don't have a ton here. It made me think when I first got into ministry vocationally, I was like doing all kinds of different things. I was killing ants in the grass. I was doing all kinds of different stuff. And I'm like, how in the world is this ministry? But when I look at some of the things that the Levite priests did, they're probably thinking the same thing. Like, God, how is this ministry? I think there was even a moment where they had to like set up bread or something like that. I mean, it's just like, how is this ministry? I can't understand it. So that's really it, man. The other thing I wanted to point out too, I had somebody tell me, one of the pastors that I work with told me that the reason he sees the principle of already being saved, as opposed to we're not saved yet on this side of heaven, but we're being saved to glorified bodies. And he's using the biblical principle that David was anointed as a teenager, but wasn't appointed until much later on as the king of Israel. But as you pointed out, the word anointed literally means to be the Messiah. So the case that pastor was making is that all Christians who claim the name of Jesus are Messiah and therefore are saved on this side of heaven. Not so sure I like that.
Well, is it my turn now? Yeah. Okay.
I believe so.
All right. I'm trying to keep track. Michael, Dan, and then that's me over here. So, yeah, I want to develop the points a little bit over here. That again, yes, we are grafted into Ephraim. That seems pretty standard, but again, the idea is that we are to be priests, right? And we are to be living sacrifices. One of the ways that the Levites apply to us is, if you remember in Leviticus, the fire, they were to keep this fire comes down from heaven. The Ruach HaKodesh comes down and lights this thing, and they were to keep this fire going. They were not to light a strange fire. They had to keep the fire, which was a representation of the Ruach HaKodesh, which was lit by Elohim, going all through the centuries, which is really crazy to think about. And it's the same thing with us. We got to keep keep the fire alive in our own lives. There was something that Dan said that I really wanted to comment on that I liked, and now I'm just totally stumbling over what he said. So we see here the difference between the 20 years of age of all the other tribes getting prepared to go to war. And interestingly enough, for the Levites, who are not numbered, it says that a Kadash and higher you shall number them. Well, that's now, if we're going by Kadash meaning a moon, that's the month or higher. So what is it about the rest of Israel, Yasharel, that 20 years or higher, they're of age, but the Levites from a month or higher? That's an interesting thought on that. One of the pieces of commentary I came across was that it's because, well, as he says down here in chapter 3:12, we just read this recently, the Levites will exist to me. They shall exist to me. From the very beginning, they were always his. And the children were just, I guess, a part of the ministry. Oh, yeah, I remember what Dan said that I really liked. He said that a lot of when people are in ministry, he said, he was out there killing ants or whatever. And he's like, how is this a ministry? It's like that with the Levites as well. I mean, think about like the night crew where there's some guys who they're sweeping up the ash. They're the ash crew and they got to go carry the ash somewhere, and they're probably thinking like, they don't get the glory of the barbecue all day. Right. So, we got to remember that in our lives, that every single thing we do is we need to make it for the glory of Yahuwah, the glory of our Father in heaven. So, all right, let me just show you this here. This comes from Deuteronomy 33:10. And another way that we are to be like the Levites. And of Levi, he said, let your Thummim and your Urim be with your Holy One, whom ye tested at Mesa, and with whom you contended at the waters of Meribah, who says of his father and mother, I have not seen them, nor did he acknowledge his brothers or know his own children, for they have observed your word and kept your covenant. And this is the whole point here of Levi. They shall teach Yaakov your judgments and Yasharel your Torah. So that is our goal. We are here to teach the rest of Yasharel, that all the people that claim that they are the Goyim, the Gentiles, and they don't want to be grafted in. And we're here to teach Yaakov the judgments of Yahuwah, as well as the Torah. And you saw this here I'm just showing you this passage again from the teaching of Silvanus, and it says, let him dwell in the temple which is within you, and may you become for him a priest and a Levite, entering in purity. That's a beautiful passage right there. This is what Yahusha says in Matthew chapter 28. And Yahusha came and spake unto them, saying, all power is given unto me in heaven and in earth. Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Ruach HaKodesh. So we see the same commission as the Levites were given. Teach the nations and baptize them. Well, what are we teaching them? We're teaching the Father's commands, right? We're teaching them obedience, the Torah. Teach it, and he even explains it here in verse 20. Teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even until the end of the world. Amen. I've commented on this before, that back in 2016, when I was given the commission personally, I felt Yahusha speaking to me, and he told me about what he wanted me to do in entering this ministry, and I remember those exact words. I'm with you always, even until the end of the world. Actually, the words were even until the end and beyond. And I didn't even connect that with the Great Commission that he told his disciples. But I remember those words and it being so meaningful to me that he's like, I'm going to be with you until the end and beyond. And then one day I read that in the Bible. I'm like, hey, wait a second. This is actually in the Bible. This is pretty awesome. I don't need to go through Matthew 5. You guys know that. All right. That is all the commentary I have on this. We have one more chapter to finish up, and then we'll close shop. And it looks like Dan stepped out. Maybe he'll come back. So, Michael, if you don't mind, I'm just going to go ahead and finish chapter 4, and then we'll let you finish, and we'll be on our way tonight. And Yahuwah, the ever-living, set words in order toward Al-Mashaha and toward Al-Aaron to declare, lift up the heads of the sons of Kuhath in the midst of the sons of Levi, according to their families of the house of their fathers, from a son of 30 years and higher and until a son of 50 years, all of the hosts that go into fashion a work of service into the tent of meeting. This shall be the prescribed work of service upon the sons of Kuhath in the tent of meeting, the Kudash ha-Kudashayam, the most set apart ones. And when Aaron and his sons come and lifting up the camp, and they take the covering veil and cover the ark of the revealed precepts with her, and have gifted over him the covering of Thukash skins, and shall spread out a cloth entirely of Thukalath from the upper part, and shall place in him his separate staves, and of the table of the faces they shall spread out a cloth of Thukalath, and shall gift over him the bowls and the curved hollow vessel and the cups for drink offerings, and the continual bread shall exist upon him. And they shall spread out upon them a crimson cloth, and shall cover him with a covering of Thukash skin, and shall set in place the separate staves, This is like an Exodus flashback right here. And they shall spread out a cloth, the thukalath, and shall cover the menorah of the light, and his lamps, and his snuffers, and his fire pans, and all her implements of oil with which they minister to her. And they shall gift upon her all her implements within a covering of thukash skins, and shall gift him upon a yoke. And over the golden altar he shall spread out a cloth of thukalath, and cover him with a covering of thukash skin, and shall place his separate staves, and shall take him all the implements of service with which he shall minister with them in the kudash over a cloth of thukalath, and he shall cover them with a covering of thukash skins, and shall gift him upon a yoke. And he has cleared from ashes the altar, and he has spread out over him a cloth of erigamon, and he has gifted over him all his implements, which he will do service with them, the fire pans, and the drawing out fork, and the shovels, and the bowls, all the implements of the altar. And he has spread out upon him a covering of thukash skins, and he has placed his separate staves. And Aaron and his sons have made an end of covering the kudash and all the implements of the kudash. In lifting up the camp in the following manner shall come the sons of Kuhath, but he shall not reach out to touch upon the kudash, or he shall die. This is the burden of the sons of Kuhath in the tent of meeting. And the charge of Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, shall be the oil for the light, and the sweet incense, and the perpetual gift offering, and the anointing oil, and the mashkan dwelling place, and all that which is in him, the kudash and his implements. And Yahuwah the ever-living set words in order toward Al-Mashaha and toward Al-Aaron to declare, do not separate the tribe of the families of the Kuhathuya from the midst of the Levites, and this shall fashion unto them, and he will exist and not kill him in approaching the Kudashayam, the most set apart. Aaron and his son shall enter and shall set in place them every man over his work of service and toward his burden, and he shall not come to observe like when the Kudash is engulfed and he dies. And I believe that is the ending, and that is the ending of my commentary. So, Michael, do you have any more?
Sure. Yeah, just a little bit more. I think Dan might be MIA for the rest. He's got to take care of his son, but we can still finish this off.
That's no problem. Now, if you have any notes, it's disappeared from my end to be able to bring it up.
Okay, let me know if you can see that.
Yeah, I can see it now.
Okay, perfect. All right, so this one really interests me. Number 1 on chapter 4. Yahweh spoke to Moses and saying, take a census of the descendants of the Kohath from among the sons of Levi by their families, by their fathers' households, from 30 years and upward, even to 50 years. My mind went to a couple of New Testament passages. Luke 3:23, Yeshua himself was about 30 years old when he began his ministry. Everybody knows that. That's when a priest, needed to start. John 8:5-7. Then the Jews said to him, you are not yet 50 years old, and you have seen Abraham? So to me, it just kind of encompassed both the priesthood of 30 to 50. I thought that was pretty cool. So a Midrash noted that in Numbers 4:3 here, that said the Levites 30 years and upward did a service in the tent of meeting. Well, Numbers 8:24 says from 25 years old and upward, they should go on to perform the service and the work of the tent of meeting. The Midrash deduced that the difference teaches that all those 5 years, from the age of 25 to the age of 30, Levites served as apprenticeships. And from that time onward, they were allowed to draw near, we talked about that, to do service. The Midrash concluded that a Levite could not enter the temple courtyard to do service unless he had served an apprenticeship of 5 years. The Midrash inferred from this that the students who see no sign of success in their studies within a period of 5 years will never see any. So it's pretty cool that there was an apprenticeship between 25 to 30. I know Paul talks about that. He was under Gamaliel. Okay, so number 5, when the camp sets out, Aaron and his son shall go in, and they shall take down the veil of the screen and cover the ark of the testimony with it. So it reminded me of the veil in the New Testament, Matthew 27. And behold, the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth shook and the rocks were split. We talk about that a lot. This is what they're talking about, the veil. Number 7 says, over the table, the bread of the presence, they shall also spread a cloth of blue and put it on the dishes and the pans of the sacrificial bowls and the jars of the drink offering, and the continual bread shall be on it. So Hebrews 9 says, Now, even the first covenant had regulations of divine worship in the earthly sanctuary. Talking about this. For there was a tabernacle prepared, the outer one, in which were the lampstand and the tabernacle and the sacred bread. This is called the holy place. Again, bread of the presence. Hebrews is talking about this. I thought this was cool. LXX, Lisa talks about it in the chat about studying with the LXX. I love the LXX. If you notice, it says porpoise skin, and they shall lay a covering of the porpoise skin. And this is Masoretic. Forgive me if the Paleo said something different. It shall spread over it a cloth of pure blue and insert poles. So LXX did not say that. It says, and they shall put a cover on it, even a blue skin, no porpoise, and put it above a garment of blue. So I thought that was interesting. And I'm going to talk more about that. So, okay, so it also talks about purple. I'm trying to find the purple here. There it is. And they shall take away the ashes from the altar and spread a purple cloth on it. So we had blue and purple. So just some on purple. It was the most expensive dye to the ancient Israelites. It was nobility, royal birth. Roman emperors wore clothing colored in purple. Catholic bishops. Phrases containing that color refer to royal lineage. Here you can see this. Look at this. Was given to the title of Purpurogenitus, which means born of the purple room. We know about the king of Tyre. They had purple. Yeah, here it is. Ezekiel mentions Tyre having it in Ezekiel 27. Now, this is what I want to talk about. The three Greek New Testament words used for this color, or porphyris, talks about an extraction of the pigment, and porphyropolis, very similar to porpoise. So I'm wondering if it's not the actual porpoise skins, but it's actually trying to say purple instead. Okay, so I did a word study on that word porpoise. It was only used in Numbers, but then there was one other, and it was in Ezekiel. So this is titled Yah. He's talking to an unfaithful Jerusalem. So Ezekiel 16 says, then I passed by you and saw you, and behold, you were at the time for love. So I spread my skirt over you and covered your nakedness. I also swore to you and entered into a covenant with you so that you become mine, declares the Lord. Then I bathed you with water, washed off your blood from you, and anointed you with oil. We talked about anointed and anointed. I also clothed you with an embroidered cloth and put sandals of porpoise skin on your feet. And I wrapped you with fine linen and covered you with silk. So this had to have been an actual animal, it appears. But I thought that was interesting that same word was only used here in Numbers and then in Ezekiel. Okay, so here we're talking about 16. They're talking about the priest is the oil for the light, and the fragrant incense, and the continual grain offering, and the anointed oil. Did a little study on the anointing oil. So the holy anointing oil described in Exodus was created from myrrh, cinnamon, fragrant cane, cassia, and olive oil. And if you see this right here, cane balsam. So other people think it might have been cannabosum instead. So that's the fragrant cane. We've talked about that on the Discord chat about possible cannabis as being this anointed oil. Here's what Wikipedia says. While sources agree that the identity of 4 to 5 ingredients of anointed oil, the identity of the fifth, cannabis, has been a matter of debate. The Bible indicates that it's an aromatic cane or grass which was imported from a distant land by the way of the spice routes, and that a related plant grown in Israel, cannabis, is referenced as a cultivated plant in the Song of Songs 4:14. Several different plants have been named as possibly being the cannabis. Just do more research if you're interested in that. Could cannabis be part of this anointing oil? I think I have one more here. No, that's it. That's all I got for this chapter, for this Torah portion. Remember, I'm off to know.
Yeah. Well, that I think that's going to conclude it tonight. And thank you, Michael, for coming by. And of course, Dan had to step out, but I'm appreciative that Dan came by as well. I hope Dan can come back some nights, and maybe you guys can do it again together. And this Torah portion was, I think you guys all saw me trying to read through it. It was brutal. I love these Torah portions, but some are harder than others. I'm going to be bringing in next week, for those of you who saw the Fig Tree Generation. I interviewed them last night. They came in. They're a wonderful young couple. They're, Millennial Kingdom, Torah based, looking at a lot of the same stuff we are, and I'm hoping to integrate them into this community. So they're going to help co-lead next week and to help kind of keep the conversation fresh. So yeah, thank you, Michael, for coming in. Any last words? Anything you want to add?
No, just all. Appreciate you having us on.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you all, everyone, for coming by week after week and making this a tradition in your household with me. And love you guys. I'll be in the Discord community all throughout the week. Come by, speak to me, say hi. There should be a link under this channel. And, I say this a lot. We meet every Friday night, 7:00. We go on live here at 9 p.m. Eastern time. So there's 2 hours there. We have a great conversation. It was a very historic week here in America, so we had a lot to talk about. And the same thing will happen on Tuesdays as well. After I give my Tuesday presentation on original material, kind of a more formal presentation, we're going to be meeting at Discord in the Tuck community and just chatting it up, community time. So hope to see you guys there. Good night, everybody. Have a good, restful Sabbath.
Shalom.